All right, welcome Delta Fitness Managers to your specific training module to become a Delta Fitness Manager. Again, my name is Coach Adam Whistler from the Schriever Guardian Resilience team, and this module is part of this larger classroom to overview the SPIFMAN 362905. If you have yet to watch our overview video, please go watch that first video within this classroom or find access to it so that you can understand the larger structure and key policy updates that have been published with this SPIFMAN. So with that being said, we'll get into our first slides. So the Delta Fitness Manager is assigned by the Delta Commander, and it is a Delta level NCO who leads all unit fitness cells within that Delta. This will all make sense with the context of that first overview video, but that Delta level NCO will work with that Delta Commander and squadron or detachment leadership to establish unit fitness cells within each of those subordinate squadrons or detachments underneath that Delta. This Delta Fitness Manager is responsible for maintaining an HPA score of 72 out of 80 or higher, completing training with the Guardian Resilience teams, such as this digital classroom or an in-person session, and then submitting all required paperwork to the Guardian Resilience team Holistic Health Integrator or that Guardian Resilience team team lead. So first, I'll talk about a small bit of potential deficiencies. If you were to fall below that HPA score of a 72 out of 80, you are allowed, with Delta Commander permission, to retest at any time after that. But if, let's say that you score a 71 out of 80, you wouldn't be due again for another 6 months until that next routine HPA. However, you are allowed to test out a cycle with Delta Commander approval to then reestablish your role as a Delta Fitness Manager. For required paperwork for all Delta Fitness Managers, this again will be delivered to that GRIT HHI or that GRIT Strength and Conditioning Coach. So for a quick rewind and look back at that previous DAF manual 362905, you will essentially be identified and granted access as a Fitness Information Manager or a Fitness Assessment Cell. Those are two terms from the old DAF manual, but that's what in MyFSS, that's what you will be assigned as, is a FIM and a FAC, which means you have a large amount of access through both MyFitness and MyBodyComp. For your establishment as a Delta Fitness Manager, you'll be, again, identified by that Delta Commander through an appointment letter as well as a written order from that commander. You will submit to that HHI or coach your security access form, that DD form 2875, in addition to your user agreement for access to the MyFitness portal and MyBodyComp portals, and then proof of certification of training, so passing all 6 of these modules and watching each of these modules within the classroom or attending a live in-person training session with the Guardian Resilience team. For all of these forms and all of the forms that you will soon see for all of those modules that we have in this course, each of these will have a template provided within this classroom or a Microsoft Teams group provided by your Guardian Resilience team. So if you feel like you don't have access to any of these, please reach out to your local Guardian Resilience team and maintain access to these forms. Now, to look at your roles and responsibilities as a Delta Fitness Manager, primarily your role and responsibility is to coordinate with your Delta Commander to run and operate this overall approach to the new SPIF manual. You will then appoint UFC staff to be the operational elements underneath your Delta. That UFC staff is comprised of those unit fitness cell managers, UFCMs, in addition to peer fitness leaders, body composition managers, and HPA administrators. You will file all the written orders for each of these individuals in those UFCs for your Delta. You'll file all of those and keep those on deck in a file folder or some sort of file management system. I would assume or recommend that most of you will start a separate Teams group or some sort of effective system, but you can work with your Guardian Resilience team of how that makes the most sense for your specific unit. So you will then also, as a FIM and FAC access within the MyFSS portals, you will then be responsible for granting access to MyFSS portals for UFCMs and BCMs. So you'll be the ones to go in there and grant access to those 2 individuals based off of the passcodes that are identified on their 2875 security forms. So they'll be responsible for, let's say, the squadron or detachment level, and then those passcodes will be identified on their 2875. You will then go into the MyFSS either my fitness portal for UFCMs or my body comp portal for the BCMs, and then you will grant access to those systems using the passcodes that were identified and listed specifically on that 2875 and signed by a security manager. So finally, you will then provide a monthly report, a synopsis to your Delta commander so that they understand the overall standards and readiness of their unit fitness. Now, additionally, you will of course work with those squadron commanders or equivalent, maybe detachment commanders, to establish HPA due dates. So between this window for our initial HPAs, we are not going to be conducting HPAs until the end of 2025, so now the start of 2026. So our first window, once UFC staff is established, you must work with those commanders for either at the squadron level or detachment level. You will work with those commanders and leaders to set HPA due dates between 1 January and 30 June in 2026. So you have this 6-month window for all unit members to be assigned a new due date for those now routine twice annual HPAs. So working with those commanders and leaders at each squadron or detachment within your Delta to determine when the commander wants essentially the unit to test. For the Delta Fitness Manager, you will also notify all UFCMs of these due dates, and you can update that PFA due date in My Fitness for each member. So previously, you would probably work with a FAC or a local GRIT to reassign that PFA due date within My Fitness. Of course, now being called an HPA, but in My Fitness, it'll still show up as a PFA. So you will reassign that PFA due date in My Fitness for each member within those separate squadrons or detachments. And again, you can have that UFCM and you work together to essentially work on doing that together for those new due dates, but that'll be established by the commander of that squadron or detachment. So one thing that's really important, which you saw on our organizational chart in that first lecture, is to establish a routine meeting with your local Guardian Resilience team and make sure that you have very frequent points of contact at that Guardian Resilience team on a relatively frequent basis. And so routinely coordinating with that GRIT, HHI, or coach to discuss changes to the SPIFMAN, if any changes were to be published in the future, whether that's to be through the actual document or the score chart, any guidance on HPA due dates, any BCA policy updates, or any SPIFMAN updates. Those are the things that may be updated in the future, but the more you can coordinate with your local Guardian Resilience team, the more quickly you'll be delivered that information. You'll also help and discuss human performance and readiness, those HPR initiatives, such as ones hosted by maybe your local Guardian Resilience team. Maybe they host routine competitions, unit runs, education sessions, group PT opportunities that are not unit specific. So essentially working with those Guardian Resilience teams to be aware of what those GRIT programs have to offer at your local or nearby installations as well. So for the overall summary of a Delta Fitness Manager, and this is essentially the big picture of what you're responsible for, coordinating those UFCs within your Delta. You're also responsible to manage those certifications in a file management system of some sort for UFCMs, PFLs, HPA administrators, and those BCMs, and then routinely collaborating with your local Guardian Resilience teams and making sure that all of this is being done to standard. I think the thing that I'd like to encourage before I let you go is just that your Guardian Resilience team is here to help you in any way that we can. So make sure that you are routinely working with us to establish those UFCs. If you have any questions on the SPIFMAN, please don't hesitate to reach out to your local GRIT, and we'd be happy to work together with you. I know that I can speak for Schriever, but I can probably speak for the entire HHA enterprise that we are very much looking forward to establishing highly effective and organized Delta Fitness Managers at every single unit across the Space Force so that we can tackle a holistic health approach together. Thanks for joining me in this module. I'll see you all in the next module.